So if you have a problem with the process,
Yeah.
and then I hear you keep saying that INEC did not do what they promised Nigerians to do, and then they didn't deliver on the deliverables. So if you had a problem with the process and then the outcome of the election, why didn't you go to court like your other colleagues did?
In the first place, I participated in an election that was organized by a government body. It failed me. I'm supposed to go to another government body, selected by the same people who had compromised this election, to go and present my case.
Even though it's referred to as the hope of the common man?
Well, if it's the hope of the common man, why is it that a candidate that was fourth in the governorship election in Imo State is a governor? Is it not the same hope of the common? Is that the hope of the common man? No, all these processes are rigged.
So that means in 2027, 2031, we are still going to see you in the ballot?
No, I'm not making such a promise. But by 2027, this country may have come to the realization that elections by themselves, organized by compromised bodies, cannot deliver democracy. And dynamically, they might have taken a different direction.
All right, you said, when you say this country needs a revolution, I also came across a particular statement that you made saying that this government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu will make it easy for a revolution to happen in Nigeria. Are you stirring up a revolt from the people? What exactly do you mean when you speak that statement?
I've always stated my position. There's nobody who doesn't know it. You know, but anybody who is a student of history and who's understudied or studied revolutions a lot would know that, you know, a lot of factors contribute to revolutions, and revolutions just don't happen overnight. But one of the factors that is the end game is hunger and starvation. When people are just deliberately starved by policy, like removal of subsidy, you know, increase in prices of bread, inflation that people can't control, like unemployment of a massive level, then that's the end game. And that's what Tinubu, in my view, is pushing by floating the naira. Prices have gone up. Now tariffs of electricity that don't even exist in the first place. So when you choke the people to the point that they can't breathe anymore, then that revolution will come to happen. That time you don't even need a Sowore to tell you. It's because it's the rumbling of your stomach that will push you onto the streets.
I'm going to ask you one very personal question.
Yes.
If President Bola Ahmed Tinubu calls you to become one of his cabinet members, would you hit to that call?
I'll sue him for violating that would be defamation of my character. No,
Why
I
so?
won't accept, and he knows not to even consider people like me because I don't fit into those kind of arrangements.
Today, before the House of Representatives Ad Hoc Committee, set up to screen the service chiefs nominated by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is the Chief of Defense Staff, Major General Christopher Musa, who spoke on interagency collaboration to deal with emerging security challenges under his watch. He said his leadership will hinge on the pillars of people centricity, prioritizing troops' welfare and deepening joint and interagency collaboration.
Accordingly, my leadership concept will be hinged on three pillars, which include being people-centric. The people must believe that we're there for them. Prioritizing troops' welfare, which is critical because a happy soldier or a happy airman or a happy seaman will give you the best, while deepening jointness and interagency cooperation. The armed forces under my leadership will be people-centric by prioritizing and safeguarding our people and their legitimate way of life as prescribed by the Nigerian Constitution. Accordingly, the armed forces of Nigeria will apply the lens of people-centricity to key components of activities to truly put the Nigerian people in the center of its actions, geared towards promoting and safeguarding a secure environment for all.
Also, the nominee for the Chief of Army Staff, Major General Torid Lagbaja, said he would run a proactive, adaptive, and inclusive leadership if confirmed.
Today's painful reality is that insecurity has distorted our developmental plans and aspirations of a strong, prosperous, globally competitive, and influential nation. Never in the recent past is the requirement for proactive, adaptive, and inclusive leadership more needed than Nigeria's security environment of today. These requirements are what I intend to meet as the Chief of Army Staff, if confirmed by the Green Chamber.
Chairman of the ad hoc committee, Honorable Babajimi Benson, said, "For more than 16 years, Nigeria has witnessed diverse and unprecedented level of insecurity. Hence, he urged all to work collectively and reduce cases of insecurity across the country."
Nigeria has witnessed diverse and unprecedented level of insecurity in which the armed forces of Nigeria have been fully involved, prompting the launch of several theaters of operations and exercises, as well as providing support for tackling several domestic internal security challenges. The House of Representatives is delighted with the successes recorded so far. To the nominees, I urge you to kindly cooperate with the National Assembly while performing your constitutional duties of ensuring a peaceful, secure, and prosperous country for all Nigerians.
Leaders of the House, Professor Julius Ohevere, expressed confidence in the officers to deal with the country's security challenges.
We are happy to see well-educated, fit, trim, and very anxious men in uniform that are ready to take the relevant strategic national security issues forward. Let me say that looking through their profiles personally, I have no doubt that these are men who have committed themselves to the stability, security, and progress of Nigeria, West Africa, Africa, and the world.
The Green Chambers also have screened Rear Admiral Emmanuel Ugala as Chief of Naval Staff and Air Vice Marshal Hassan Abubakar as Chief of Air Staff as at the time of filing this report. From the nation's capital, Mavis Ako, KAFTAN TV News.
Now let's begin this conversation taking a quote from Kofi Annan, who is a Ghanaian diplomat, and he served as the 7th Secretary General of the United Nations from 1997 to 2006. He once said, "If corruption is a disease, transparency is a central part of its treatment." Okay, we'll take our next one, and this one is from Mikel Temer, who is a Brazilian politician, lawyer, and writer. He served as the 37th president of Brazil from 31st August 2016 to 31st December 2018. He once said, "When you have a new government assume power, everyone without exception has to work for the benefit of the common good." Absolutely spot on. Our next one is from J. William Fulbright, American politician, academic, and statesman, who once said, "The case for government by elite is irrefutable." Okay. Our last one is from George Brandes, an Australian former politician. He once said, "Historically, it is very unusual after a change of government for the new government not to be returned." Okay, let's see how this correlates to what we'll be discussing tonight. Very warm greetings and welcome to The Conversation. We're reaching you from KAFTAN's television studio here, the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Annabelle Oji. Now, the candidate of the African Action Congress, AAC, recently released his 2023 campaign expenses of its presidential candidate Omoyele Sowore. The National Publicity Secretary of the party, Femi Adeyeye, said in a statement that during the 2023 presidential election won by Bola Ahmed Tinubu of All Progressive Congress, APC, the flag bearer of the ACC garnered 14,608 votes. Now, according to the breakdown of the spending, the party received a total of about 40 million naira for the campaigns. 38.3 million naira of which was donated to it. The breakdown of the spending compiled by the party showed that 21 million naira was spent on conveyance, while 5 million naira for the campaign of the party was spent for party activities. 3.3 million naira to cover cost of printing, 2.5 million naira on media logistics, and 2.2 million naira on security and other volunteers. Okay, so it stated that Mr. Sowore contributed only 1.8 million naira. And then other expenditures include 1.6 million naira on maintenance, 1.2 million naira for subscription, and you have 1.3 million naira for welfare, 20,000 for consumables, and 80,302 naira for bank charges for that period. For the candidates' personal funding, however, the party used 1.5 million naira for conveyance, 200,000 naira to cover the cost of printing, and 70,000 naira for maintenance. And Mr. Femi Adeyeye said that the party also gave the breakdown in 2019, shortly after the presidential election, claiming it is first recorded in Nigeria's electioneering history. The party also challenged the 17 other political parties that presented candidates during the elections to present their expenses. The AAC insisted that Nigeria cannot have a clean leadership recruitment process if politicians continue to shroud their electioneering process in secrecy. Okay, and they went on to say that, like I said, that they are urging other political parties to come up with their expenses. Well, that's what we'll be discussing on the show today. That plus many other things we'll be discussing this evening with my guest, Omoyele Sowore, who is the presidential candidate of AAC. It's great to have you on the show again today, sir.
Thank you for bringing me.
Great. All right, now, before we go ahead talking about the breakdown of your campaign expenses, let's start by getting your thoughts with all that happened during the elections, starting from the electioneering process down to the outcome of the elections, still going forward, the election tribunals. What do you have to say to us, Nigerians?
I think as soon as the elections were over, I did one or two interviews where I explained to the Nigerian people that once again, the election has gone the route that was incredibly terrible. And that is that we haven't learned our lessons, that here comes again another selection, you know, and as a result, I rejected the outcome of the election. And when I was asked if I will go to the tribunal to challenge the election, I said no, because I do not believe that an election happened, and I do not have confidence that the tribunals that will be involved in deciding elections will give me the kind of outcome that I expect. So that's my position to date, that Nigeria once again managed not to have an election.
Also, in your own, to you, it was just a selection and not an election.
Very outrightly, it was a selection, yes.
All right. So I recall.
My position has been vindicated by, you know, a lot of election monitors that came into the country, the conversation in the country, and it is open secret, by the way. It's nothing new. Okay,
so what if now? So people would always ask that, what if the election favored you and you became the winner of the during that election? Would you actually say that it was selection or still election?
If an election produces a person of my caliber, there's no way it can be a selection, because
now it's because it was not you.
That's why it's not. It's not because it's not me. It's because you know how it is for an election to produce a person who is radically different from the status quo. That must have been an overwhelming victory that the system cannot tamper with. Are you getting my point? It's not because it's not me. I went into the election knowing that I could win or lose. Okay. But I did not calculate that in going for an election, which we clearly were told is going to be an election, I wasn't participating in a selection process. Otherwise, I wouldn't have participated in the first place if there was no assurance that we're going into an election. And that's why I was very clear before the election regarding all the issues that then became dominant and frustrating what could have been a good election. You know, I was the first person to go to the National Assembly and say that INEC was incredible and that they did not have the capacity to operate digitally as they were promising the public. So I also complained that the election was robbed of the flair of debates, you know, very concrete, fluid debates about issues. And that to a large extent the media, those who were organizing those things were complicit in shielding some people. So there's nothing that happened eventually that I had not spoken about.
Now, speaking of all that you said before the elections, I recall that you were one of the contestants who blatantly refused to go visit the people that were called the kingmakers, or those that were referred to as the owners of Nigeria. And then you also made some audacious statements during your campaigns. And then some people come out to say that, isn't that the reason? Couldn't that be the reason why you were not selected or probably elected, or even among the 4 that were elected, that came out as the first runner-up?
Well, you know, I went into politics, and usually I'm very careful not to use the word generically. I went into electioneering campaign not to go and worship people, particularly those who had designated themselves as owners of Nigeria, or people who are in a special class that doesn't believe in the same things that I believe in. So, and I've made it clear, it just didn't start from now. I had always been against them from when I was very, very young, especially when I was a student leader. So these were the same people that I worked against when they were in the military or in several positions of leadership in the country, who are now called kingmakers. And I don't believe that we need a king, we need a president, a democratically elected leader. So there's no way I could have gone to the kingmakers that I've been opposed to my entire life. And I always named them. And even during the election when we had an interface with the group, the so-called Peace Accord Committee, whatever they put together, I made it clear to the chairman of the Peace Accord, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, that had you not been part of people who annulled the June 12th election in 1993, you wouldn't be signing a peace accord during an election, because Nigeria is practically one of the countries in the world that signs a peace accord during an election. It presumes that election is war in this country. And if it is, why are we surprised at the outcomes that we're getting now? Because this is the kind of outcomes that are produced by warlike situations or processes.
All right, now I came across a particular interview, a statement today you made recently where you said, and quote, "I did not lose election in 2023 because there was no election in 2023. What they did was selection." And then someone asked on social media, because we always take questions from our social media trend, and then someone asked in that regard saying, if you had won the election, will you still make that statement? Because it purely means that the election that brought you forth into position is nothing but selection.
No, my position was very clear that when we signed up as candidates, 18 of us, to go for an election that was held in February 2023, there were clear guidelines as to what the election would look like, right? It's just like writing an examination. They'll say, well, this is the date of the examination, this is the date of arrival for the exam, and it starts, and this is the number of minutes or hours or seconds you are supposed to spend answering each question. And at the end of it, at the end of this examination, this is how your results will be handled. I mean, your answers will be handled, and you eventually get the results. All those processes meant that we signed up for a process that was supposed to be credible. So you have an election in which we were told, or we were assured, and it was also by law that the results of the election must be sent out digitally, and that people must vote after they have been accredited. all those processes were violated in this election. The digital upload of election results did not happen. The accreditation did not happen in a lot of places. They had to resort back to manual accreditation in a lot of places where voting took place. So, and even observers that came from abroad and locally made it very clear that all these conditions and for processing a proper election were violated, violently violated. So there is nothing to call it an election for. It wasn't an election. That it produced an outcome is the reason why I'm saying it was a selection, because it looks to me, or I know now, that this had been predetermined, that this particular candidate or party will present a candidate that will win the election, whether the processes are flawed or not.
So if you have a problem with the process,
Yes.
and then I hear you keep saying that INEC did not do what they promised Nigerians to do, and then they didn't deliver on the deliverables. So if you had a problem with the process and then the outcome of the election, why didn't you go to court like your other colleagues did?
In the first place, I participated in an election that was organized by a government body. It failed me. I'm supposed to go to another government body selected by the same people who had compromised this election to go and present my case.
Even though it's referred to as the hope of the common man?
Well, if it's the hope of the common man, why is it that a candidate that was fourth in a governorship election in Imo State is a governor? Is it not the same hope of the common? Is that the hope of the common man? No, all these processes are rigged. And part of why people like me keep participating, because that's the next question you should ask, why are you still partaking in all this charade, is to keep letting the public know that this cannot guarantee you the destination that we've always promised you.
So that means in 2027, 2031, we are still going to see you in the ballot?
No, I'm not making such a promise. But by 2027, this country may have come to the realization that elections by themselves, organized by compromised bodies, cannot deliver democracy. And dynamically, they might have taken a different direction. That's always been my position. I don't hide it, that this country needs a revolution. I never hide it.
All right.
And it will happen whether they like it or not.
All right. You said, when you say this country needs a revolution, I also came across a particular statement that you made saying that this government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu will make it easy for a revolution to happen in Nigeria. Are you stirring up a revolt from the people? What exactly do you mean when you speak that statement?
I've always stated my position. There's nobody who doesn't know it. But anybody who is a student of history and who's understudied or studied revolutions a lot would know that, a lot of factors contribute to revolutions. And revolutions just don't happen overnight. But one of the factors that is the end game is hunger and starvation. When people are just deliberately starved by policy, like removal of subsidy, increase in prices of bread, inflation that people can't control, like unemployment of a massive level, then that's the end game. And that's what Tinubu, in my view, is pushing by floating the naira. The naira is at 800 naira to $1 now. Kids of people who went to school abroad, who are buying dollar for 500, 400 now, can't figure out how to pay the school fees. I'm not interested in them. People can't feed. People can't buy gasoline. What the energy prices have gone up. Now tariffs of electricity that don't even exist in the first place. So when you choke the people to the point that they can't breathe anymore, then that revolution will come to happen. That time you don't even need a Sowore to tell you. It's because it's the rumbling of your stomach that will push you onto the streets. Yes.
All right, now taking a cue from where you just landed, during an interview I cited, you said when you were asked about what you would do differently with regards to the precipitous decline in our national currency compared with other currencies, and then you said, and quote, the first thing to do is to completely abolish multiple rate system in the naira, which is the real bane for corruption, and also that you will fire the central bank governor, who according to you has no credibility. So now that all of us, some of these things have been done, isn't it supposed to be a win-win for Nigeria at the end, which you were actually contesting to lead?
Well, it took too long to fire the central bank governor. He had already done the damage, including with the Naira redesign policy, done like massive cataclysmic damage to the economy. When I was saying this was almost a year ago, that's number one. Secondly, I wasn't going to float the Naira, Thirdly, they have not abolished multiple exchange rates. A lot of Nigerians don't know this. What they did was to combine all the exchange rates and make dual exchange rates. So there's still an official window where you can get a dollar for less than the amount of money that they should trade for. So this manipulation is the reason why the dollar is at 800 naira now. It's the floating of the dollar. And it was done to please the people they call foreign investors. So that according to them, they will come in and invest in the country, what they call foreign direct investment. Which is a charade, The short-term investors who are reaping from speculating on the naira, they don't build factories. They don't build factories. They just like, it's just like a lottery for them. They speculate, they invest, and they take out the money at the end of the day. That's not foreign direct investment. For foreign direct investment to come here, in that interview, which you didn't get to, you have to produce. You have to have the power sector producing electricity 24 hours. In a day, and that will bring about a lot of, value added to, value will be added to the economic development of the country, because people will have find jobs, people will become creative, people don't have to leave the country. You'll be able to use excess money to invest in education, not to create another grand, or pyramid scheme called, palliatives, where you're going to open warehouses, ask party leaders to buy and put rice there, and all the money will evaporate. And I heard yesterday they're asking for 500 billion naira to buy palliatives. What is the meaning of all that? The National Assembly that is approved that will take 100 billion as a bribe before they can approve it. You'll be left with 400 billion. 200 billion will go to the political party in the country and their members. This is just their own giveaway. And the masses will have nothing. You don't do giveaways in a country that is struggling with unemployment, lack of power, insecurity. Those things will not work. This has to be long-term policy initiatives that guarantees social security, that ensure that people have long-term basis for survival. It's investment, it's not palliative. Palliatives are so insulting, I don't even want to talk about it, because when you talk about palliatives here, you're talking about warehouses, stuff.
Just remember COVID-19.
Exactly. And people who are in the position of leadership do that just to fool people. And at any rate, why are you giving palliatives back when you say the country doesn't need subsidy? So finally, we are going to subsidize again. Yes, that's subsidy, short-term subsidy. So what we say is that the entire world, there's no part of the world, economies around the world, that people or units of the economic center powerhouse are not subsidized by government. Yes, the UK subsidizes electricity, the US subsidizes agriculture, subsidizes everything, subsidizes education. There's now an argument about even like repayment of loans on behalf of students who took loans, including myself, because I studied in the US. So those are subsidies, and they are going to be billions, if not trillions of dollars. Why are they doing that? Because this is the only way their societies can survive. You cannot just wake up one day and dislocate your informal sector, which is almost 80% of the economic system in the country, by saying, oh, we have removed every support we have for you. It's like put somebody on a bridge and then you start to pull the bridge apart. They are going to drop into the water below, whether it's the sea or a lake. People will drown. So most of us, including yourself, we are all kind of self-employed. So it's this little government support that we have that keeps us going. So since you remove the subsidy, they even confessed that after they removed subsidy, people are not buying fuel. That's a different economic problem when people cannot afford to buy fuel. So you ground the entire country. Yeah, you realize a few days later and say, oh, let's return some of it back to the people in the name of palliatives. But what's the meaning of palliatives? I don't know. It's just like putting band-aids, what we call plaster, you know, on an open wound without investigating whether it's cancerous or not.
Since we are talking about the present administration's economic policies and plans that they've rolled out, now let's also, aside the fuel subsidy removal, how about the electricity deregulation that was signed into law by this current administration? How about the 4 executive orders with regards to tax, with regards to customs? How far with all of these policies? So
my little understanding of the executive order signed is that it's just paparazzi.
Why do you think so?
Most of the executive orders signed had already been reversed under the last regime. Buhari had already suspended the tax that they're now talking about. So about 8 of the 10 executive orders had already been reversed. So I think somebody just felt like Nigerians like entertainment inside the Tinubu regime, and they just keep entertaining people. It's just like tickling children, and you know they love it. It's because after 2 weeks, Nigerians are very impressionable people. After 2 weeks of coming to power, even people who would suffer from removal of subsidy were jubilating. Oh, it's removed subsidy. Now we can save the money and use it to do other things. It has been how many months now? He was sworn in May 29, right?
It's not yet months.
Yes, it's been months. And so we've done June. We've done the end of, June.
We're still in July.
So we're in July. So where is the money that was saved? What has it been used to do?
But we're still...
How's your electricity?
We're still counting 100 days.
How your roads, all right? How is food supply? How's water supply?
Isn't it too early to start judging?
Well, when they were removing fuel subsidy, it was immediate. So we expect the results to be immediate as well, because that's what they said. But it's all a hoax. You can wait for the next 8 years. We'll be back here analyzing this, but I hope it won't be the case, that people will be smart enough to understand that it's all a hoax and a lie.
So are you saying that you're not optimistic with regards to these policies and this?
There is none of these policies that I haven't experienced before. This is just structural adjustment program all over again. The type we fought against in the 80s. That is back. They just don't call them SAP anymore, but they're still sapping you. They're sapping. They take whatever they can. Government is always taking from people. They're always asking you to make sacrifices, while those in government are taking care of themselves. Their salaries and allowances are going up by huge percentages. So many of them are not announced so that there are no backlashes against them. You can see them, they look robust. Even Tinubu looks headier now since he became president. He used to struggle to work. So he's doing better than everybody else, at every sector of the country.
I'm going to ask you one very personal question.
Yes.
If President Bola Ahmed Tinubu calls you to become one of his cabinet members, would you head to that call?
I'll sue him for violating that would be defamation of my character. No,
why,
I won't accept, and he knows not to even consider people like me, because I don't fit into those kind of arrangements. This is not the first time people in government will consider reaching out to me, particularly under the Jonathan regime, and I've spoken extensively about this. So they sent somebody to me in the US to come home and take up a position. They said to me, whatever position you want when you get home. I said, I'm not interested in government job.
But if you wanted to serve the people as a president, and then you are asked to come serve the people as a minister, isn't it one and the same?
I'm glad you said serve the people. What if I'm invited not to serve the people, but to just change the people? Would you still call that service? No.
All right then, let's go on a quick break, and when we return, we'll continue this conversation with Omoyele Sowore. I will see you after this time out. Join us again. So now, if you made the statement that Tinubu's administration makes it easy for revolution, isn't that almost the same statement that brought off all of this? And then you're still going back that way again. I heard someone say, what is even Omoyele Sowore's own? Please just let me borrow Nigerians' word, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's word. Let Nigerians breathe.
Well, they should let all of us breathe, and but I'm sure they won't. But we'll make sure that we breathe, whether they like it or not.
Have you been allowed to travel and then visit your family?
They're still holding on to my passport. I've been trapped in Nigeria for 4 years now. I've been here since 2019, unable to travel out. I used not to be able to travel out of Abuja, according to them. But the Court of Appeal varied that particular part of the bill and said it was draconian. How would you restrict a Nigerian to a city? But they must return my passport to me so I can feel free to see my family.
How soon do you see this happening?
I don't think it will happen as soon as I want, but we'll keep fighting. There's no easy victory here in this country. I mean, you know that considering the kind of legitimacy issues they have, they'll double down on persecution of people who don't dance to their tune. And like you know, I'm not going to bow to their mammon.
Not bowing to their mammon, and then you say there's no easy victory. Let's take it back also to the same thing that happening with Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. And do you actually see any victory in sight, for either you or for him?
I don't think that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is not sufficiently imbued with the understanding that this is not going to be an easy battle. He's fighting, a battle of his life.
On display today, we have 40 AK-47 rifles, 3 pistols, 3 locally made shotguns, 100 K2 ammunition, 11 9mm pistol ammunition, 20 rolls of tramadol or packs of tramadol, 5 bricks of fake gold, 1 iPhone 13 Pro Max, 1 locally made single barrel gun, 5 different company stamps, $800 and 4 suspected improvised explosive devices that are on display today.
The Nigerian police force, in its ongoing efforts to combat crime and criminality and curb the proliferation of illegal weapons in the country, has in the past 2 months arrested 1,412 suspects for various violent crimes, including 548 suspects for armed robbery, 242 suspects for kidnapping, 365 suspects for murder or homicide, and 237 suspects for rape and defilement. Prominent among these cases was the arrest of one Yusuf Ismail Isa, aged 32, a plumber from Okene, Kogi State, by RT Base. According to the force PRO, Olumuyiwa Adejobi, he was part of the 7-man gang that launched a fatal attack on the convoy of Apostle Johnson Suleiman, the founder of Omega Fire Ministries Worldwide, AUCHI, on October 21, 2022, along Benin Auchi Road, where 6 people, including 3 police officers, were murdered.
Investigation revealed that the suspect was part of the 7-man gang responsible for the attack on the convoy of the apostle, and some of the rifles found in his possession were in fact rifles snatched from the 3 police officers that were killed during the October 21, 2022 attack.
Similarly, 5 suspects were apprehended in Abuja for conspiracy and kidnapping, amongst others.
I was among the people that attacked Apostle Johnson Suleiman. First person that opened fire on the convoy of Apostle Johnson Suleiman.
I'm here for what I did not do this time, sir. It's my past that is following me. It's my past. My past that has taken me to prison. It's my past that make me here, sir.
You were once alleged of killing a copper too.
Sir, that is the issue that took me to prison.
The same issue. A pregnant woman and a copper. Which offense are you arrested for?
It's president takes we are two, sir. Then I will be pricing we are two. So if I will come to shop.
Oh, price and take.
Yes, if I come, I will be pricing with Tuesday. The other person will be packing it. So that is where we
oh, sorry.
Additionally, the police has neutralized 4 suspects who enforce illegal sit-at-home order in the East region. The acting IGP, Kayode Egbetokun, reiterates the commitment of the Nigerian police force to continually ensure the safety and security of all and sundry, while emphasizing that his administration will leave no stone unturned in the fight against crime. From the nation's capital, Mavis Akko, KAFTAN TV News.
Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We are reaching you from KAFTAN's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you just joined us, you've actually missed out on a whole lot, but then you can still join in the conversations. Our guest on the show tonight is Omoyele Sowore, presidential candidate of AAC. All right, before we went on that break, we actually talked about this administration, and then I asked you if you were asked to come forth, because quite a number of times he has extended the olive branch, and then they said so most people did refuse to heed to that call, and then you said you would not take it because what if you were called to strip people naked? Yeah. But what if you were called to serve because you have great policies? So come and be those policies you've always railed out, come and head or chair that policy and then serve the people. Would you heed to that call?
I'll heed to only one call, which is to serve the people in the capacity that is elective and in which I have no restriction to implement those policies. And it is very clear that my or our policies as a political party and movement are different from what is in existence today. For instance, the policy of removal of petroleum subsidy is at variance with what we stand for, the one they have implemented now. Even the kind of relationship that we're saying now are at variance with what we stand for.
What do you stand for with regards to fuel subsidy removal?
That it should not be removed. What I'll remove are the people who are exploiting, the fuel subsidy regime and the criminals who are stealing from it. Those are the ones that would have gone after. There's nothing wrong with fuel subsidy. If you have 130 million out of 200 million people who are poor, they need some kind of cushion, and the best we can give to them is this, God-given petrol or oil resources. Share it equitably between the rich and poor. They don't have few people take advantage of the rest of the country. It is done in Saudi Arabia. It's done everywhere. People who have resources like ours, natural resources, share it amongst their citizens. That's why the United Arab Emirates is where everybody wants to go to, because they're using it to service their country. If you die in the United Arab Emirates, there is somebody who will bury you with dignity for free. If you die here, people will take your body parts, hoping that they can use it to make more money out of desperation. So that's, for instance, I can't be in a regime that is hosting former governors who are undergoing trial for corruption. They can see on TV these days the kind of people that enters into Asura, former militants, corrupt former governors, and there's nothing I haven't seen. Very stomach churning kind of visits and relationships and associations. How do you want me to survive in that kind of a place?
Isn't it supposed to be an open door? Everyone can come in.
Well, if it's an open door, why don't we just elect criminals to take charge of our doors? It's not supposed to be an open door. It's supposed to be a secure door for people with integrity and dignity and capacity to serve the people, not criminals.
All right, now your party recently released the 2023 campaign expenses, and according to the breakdown of the spending, your party received a total of 40 million naira for the campaigns, 38.3 million naira, of which was donated to it, while the party's presidential candidate, you contributed 1.8 million naira, and then you've also asked other presidential candidates to do same. So in that regard, I was actually looking around to see if I would see the nomination expenses made on the for regards to the nomination forms. How come it's not there also?
We don't pay for nomination forms in our party.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's why the expense is not there. Otherwise, all the money I raised wouldn't have been enough to buy a nomination form if I had to pay 100 million naira just to buy a piece of paper. And that's the way politics should be done. It's the way anybody who is aspiring to lead this country must show transparency at small levels and with small things, so that with big things you can entrust them with transparency as well. And it shouldn't even be that you are doing it for the sake of, your own conscience. It should be compulsory. And it is compulsory, but INEC doesn't really pay attention. In the US, if you are running for office and you are raising donation from the public, you must account for the donations every quarter. And people go to jail for misusing campaign donation funds. You saw what happened to Donald Trump. Yes, he's been tried for spending $130,000 to pay off an Olosho with campaign money. Olosho meaning a prostitute. And so, but here, we just don't care. And if you hear what the big parties spend for campaign anyway, you'll be shocked. But for us, whether we raise small money or big money, I will continue as long as I do this to account for whatever I raise from the public. It's just a way of returning to the public what they deserve in terms of understanding what you did with their money. And it's also a way of retaining public trust and also teaching others that it's the right way to do it.
Absolutely. Yes. And then, since you've already asked that other 17 presidential candidates do same, we are actually hoping that we get to see this real.
And this is not my first time. I did it 2019 as well. And by then I raised more money. I raised over 160 million naira in that campaign.
All right, so now let's talk about your trial and allegation with regards to that was labeled against you with regards to treasonable felony. And I recall that's the Omoyele Sowore versus federal government. I recall a few years ago, the American Bar Association's Center for Human Rights asked the federal government to drop the criminal charges based on the federal government's inability to provide sufficient evidence. And then since that trial began, and then I recall that you were also restricted to just Abuja, but I know that since after the election, or since during the election and campaigning times, you've always been here, there, and almost everywhere. So how's it coming along? How far so far?
Well, the trial is a facade. It's just meant to punish me for being daring. And it's not the first time the federal government will come after me. They've been coming after me since my early 20s. I attended a federal university, the University of Lagos. My expulsion was ordered twice by the president of Nigeria from the University of Lagos. So instead of 4 years, I spent 6 years in the university. When I was done, I went for NYSC. The day I was supposed to complete my NYSC, they arrested me, kept me in detention, a dungeon, for about a week, and never gave me my NYSC certificate to today. Oh. Instead, they said, they extended my NYSC service, took me from Adama to Sokoto. We went to court, challenged them. They came to court and said, the courts have no right to intervene in those matters. So after that, they have done more things to me. I've been in detention several times. I've been tried, for offenses relating to, breach of public peace, and then then graduated to 2019 when they charged me for treason after detaining me illegally for about 5 months at the DSS headquarters here in Abuja. So ever since then, they presented only one witness. And the witness seems to have turned against them because he was even their own witness. And COVID came, and the judge who was initially handling those cases was harsh towards me, abandoned the case. She was transferred to Calabar, refused to continue trying. The case was taken to another judge who returned it to the chief judge of the Federation, and then taken to a third judge now who has not heard the case since February 21. That the new judge had the case. He has not heard it until June, this last June. So we're in court, and they said they want to arraign me afresh. And yesterday we applied that, we did apply that they should quash the charges. Does that mean there are no witnesses, there is no interest in the government side to prosecute because there's nothing to prosecute? A lot of courts have ruled that I have a right to organize the protest of any kind. All right. There's also been rulings that they should return my phones back to me. They should pay me damages for illegally seizing my phone. There are court rulings that or judgments that they should they should pay damages, more damages for illegally abducting me before a judge after I was granted bail. But being a lawless system and government, the government has not obey these court orders. They continue, they still came to court shamelessly yesterday saying, oh, we have to arraign him. This is their own way of obtaining conviction, obtaining a sentence without conviction, because they know that there's no way they can convict me in a court of law, even if their mom is the judge. Yeah.
So now, if you made the statement that Tinubu's administration makes it easy for revolution, isn't that almost the same statement that brought off all of this? And then you're still going back that way again. I heard someone say, what is even Omoyele Sowore's own? Please just let me borrow Nigerians' word, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's word, let Nigerians breathe.
Well, they should let all of us breathe, and but I'm sure they won't. But we'll make sure that we breathe, whether they like it or not.
All right. So now, and for now, have you been allowed to travel and then visit your family?
No, they're still holding on to my passport. I've been trapped in Nigeria for 4 years now. I've been here since 2019, unable to travel out. I used not to be able to travel out of Abuja, according to them. But the Court of Appeal varied that particular part of the bill and said it was draconian. How would you restrict a Nigerian to a city? But they must return my passport to me so I can feel free to see my family.
How soon do you see this happening?
I don't think it will happen as soon as I want, but we'll keep fighting. There's no easy victory here in this country. I mean, you know that considering the kind of legitimacy issues they have, they'll double down on persecution of people who don't dance to their tune. And like I'm not going to bow to their mammon.
Not bowing to their mammon. And then you say there's no easy victory. Let's take it back also to the same thing that's happening with Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. And do you actually see any victory in sight for either you or for him?
I don't think that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is not sufficiently imbued with the understanding that this is not going to be an easy battle. He's fighting, a battle of his life, and it's a battle of a lifetime, which is him saying he wants to dismember this country, Nigeria. And Nigeria is the ShopRite of the elites, whether they are from the east, south, north, or any parts. And they don't take kindly to anybody who would come and destroy this economic powerhouse. So I know him well enough that he understands what he's fighting for. For him, victory is either victory or death. And if you're in that position, this shouldn't bother you. But I think it's their own interest, and they have seen it now, that the solution to the problem is dialogue. Release Nnamdi Kanu immediately. Sit down with him and see how you want to solve this problem. Because even if you kill him, thousands and thousands of Nnamdi Kanus will pop up from the southeast. Already there are people calling for the breakup of Nigeria in every part, even in the north. So this is complete waste of time. Detaining him indefinitely and manipulating the judicial process. And you see the reason why I don't have faith in the judiciary is, you know, the Court of Appeal says to this man, you have no more charges against you because he was extraordinarily rendition from Kenya illegally. And then the following week, the same Court of Appeal stays its own judgment, which is an anomaly. It's all bizarre and weird. But that's Nigeria for you. But as you know, it's well known to them, this is going to consume them if they don't resolve it. It's going to consume all of them.
All right, so even as we finally land on this note, I'm sure you're aware of the fact that time flies and waits for no man. So I will ask you that same question I asked you initially. 2027, or maybe let's leave 2027, because some people will say all administrations will always want to have a comeback. So 2027 or 2031, what's next for Omoyele Sowore?
You know, I don't do my life on a basis of those kind of quarterly calculations. You know, I live one day at a time, and I believe that we also don't have time on our hands to achieve total victory. So if I hand you a victory today, would you wait till 2027? Definitely no. You will embrace it now. And that is why our battle cry is revolution now. Can't wait.
All right, can't wait. What a fine way to end this conversation. Thank you so much, Omoyele Sowore. It's always a pleasure having these discussions with you.
It's always a pleasure being on your show.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, that's where we leave it for tonight. That's where we anchored for tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have been chatting with Omoyele Sowore, who is AAC presidential candidate, and it's been a wonderful time here on The Conversation. Keep watching The Conversation, because you never know who my next guest will be and what I will be discussing on next. Until I come your way again, the nation's capital, Abuja, I am Annabelle Oji. God bless you and yours, and God bless Nigeria.